It's D-U-E-U tell. I see you by this point, you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah. D-U-E-U.
Welcome to Football Game Plan's NFL All 32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and today we're going to preview the 2020 edition of the Chicago Bears. And before we get started, let's take a look at some of the key storylines for the Bears heading into the season as we go into our 4-minute offense. There is a new quarterback in town, mainly to help push the current one. Chicago made a trade this offseason for Nick Foles, who comes in trying to recapture the magic he had during his Super Bowl run in Philadelphia. Last season, Foles was supposed to help lead the Jacksonville Jaguars to the promised land, but he was injured in week 1 and subsequently missed a chunk of the regular season. And when he returned, he didn't play particularly well, getting himself benched in the process. Mitch Trubisky is coming off of a season where he played extremely conservative, only completing passes at a 6.1 yards per attempt rate, and really played a big role in stymieing an offense that ranked 25th in passing, 29th overall. To make matters worse, he has to constantly deal with the reality that he was a quarterback that was taken ahead of both Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, both of whom are young stars in the NFL, let alone at the quarterback position. The Bears didn't pick up his 5th-year option, letting it subtly be known that either number 10 is going to shape up or Chicago is willing to ship him out in 2021. In an attempt to help jumpstart an anemic offensive attack, Bears head coach Matt Nagy did some reshuffling to his coaching staff, enlisting some of the league's best in Bill Lazor, John DeFilippo, and Juan Castillo. Lazor comes over from the Cincinnati Bengals and will take over as offensive coordinator. DeFilippo is going to be the quarterback's coach and was able to coach new QB Nick Foles in both Philly and last season down in Jacksonville. Along the offensive line is where you can find Castillo, who is entering his 25th year in the league and has spent last season with the Michigan Wolverines as an offensive analyst, but was the Buffalo Bills O-line coach back in 2018. Now, Nagy is hopeful that the combination will be exactly what this team needs to help make them a more consistent and dynamic offense, and one that gets the most out of the quarterback position. The Bears' defense was pretty good last season, finishing 8th overall in total defense. However, the feeling amongst the masses was that they wasn't as dominant as their 2018 season. Well, sure, that's a true statement, but what doesn't get brought up about that particular team was that they were a record-setting defense and one who turned the ball over at a high clip. In fact, it was that defense that took a lot of pressure off of how Mitch Trubisky actually played that season, which, if we were being honest, was just a shade better than he did last year. People can't let the 2018 season overshadow how good the Bears were on defense last year on both ends. Now, with some key additions at all 3 levels, the hope is that they can add turnovers and high sack numbers back to their overall defensive repertoire. One player the Bears added defensively that can help them accomplish a lot of their goals is edge rusher Robert Quinn. Last season with the Cowboys, he racked up 11.5 sacks and 13 TFLs. Both numbers were the highest for him since 2014, which was also the last time he made the Pro Bowl. Quinn was always a very good player, but dealt with a lot of injuries during his last 4 seasons, and last year he proved to be himself once again, which is the direct reason for the uptick in his production. The Bears are getting a player in Quinn who feels like he still has a lot of good football left to give, and if he can replicate what he did last year, it will certainly help out All-Pro Khalil Mack on the opposite side tremendously. All that could have been said about the Bears quarterback situation has been said, quite honestly. There's a clear understanding of what has to happen this year from the quarterbacks, the coaches, and general manager Ryan Pace. And to be honest, they don't need Trubisky to be Pat Mahomes or even Deshaun Watson. They just need him to be a piece of the offense and do his part. If he's capable of doing that, then the Bears have more than enough playmakers to be a productive offense. If he can't, we have at least seen evidence of Nick Foles being capable of doing it. As a matter of fact, he may be a hair better at throwing the football deep down the field than Trubisky, but the fact of the matter is Trubisky's athleticism gives him an added dimension within the offense, which is why it is up to a revamped offensive coaching room to help him maximize it, and in turn, they should get the desired results. I don't believe many understand how much the run game suffers when you don't have a quarterback under center that opposing defenses don't have to respect. It's not like Tariq Cohen forgot how to play football or David Montgomery forgot how to gain yards. Now, with that being said, there clearly has to be an uptick in production this season coming from the backfield. I've always felt that they were a bit predictable by personnel with their backs. If Cohen gets used in a similar way that they use both Montgomery and Ryan Nall, it takes away a lot of the predictability and will increase the output. He is still the best back on their roster, and they should treat him as such. It'll help make their offense much more dynamic, especially coming from that position. On the perimeter is where I am excited about the Bears offense this upcoming season. In spite of the inconsistency at quarterback, Allen Robinson still went over 1,100 yards last season and found the end zone 7 times. Chicago hopes that they can get the ascending Anthony Miller across that 1,000-yard barrier as well. He finished second on the team in receiving, and the third-year player saw an increase in his targets from Trubisky and was able to seemingly find himself open a lot last season. Where things will get interesting and competitive, quite honestly, this year is at that wide receiver 3 spot. Chicago signed veteran Ted Ginn this offseason, whose calling card is his deep speed. They still have Cordero Patterson, who is more of a Swiss Army knife player and a stellar returner, and Javon Wims, the third-year player out of Georgia. All three are vying for that role. I would assume because of the specific nature of both Ginn's game and Patterson's game, Wims would be the odds-on favorite to win that job. Plus, he has a game that's very similar to Robinson in the sense that he's a big target with a large catch radius. Now, Riley Ridley is another name to keep an eye on, as well as 5th-round pick Darnell Mooney out of Tulane, who has speed and game that will remind some of Ted Ginn. Chicago has invested heavily in the tight end position by acquiring the services of Jimmy Graham, Demetrius Harris, and Eric Saubert in free agency. They view Graham as the missing piece to a passing game that wants to attack down the middle of the field. They also hope that 2nd-round pick Cole Kmet out of Notre Dame can be that guy as well. Now, Kmet to me is a solid option, but he's more of a tight end 2, which if Graham can be what they envision him being this season, then Kmet would be in an excellent spot to thrive as a rookie. The Bears also thought they were getting that guy in Adam Shaheen, the 6'7" target from Ashland University, but he hasn't been able to seize that role so far in his career. He still has talent, and so does Ben Broniker, who figures to serve in more of an H-back role. I also like Jesper Horsted. So the former wide receiver convert who scored a touchdown last Thanksgiving against the Lions, when you look at all of that talent that they have at the position, they don't lack options or talent. So it will be interesting to see how they are able to get the most out of their tight ends in 2020. It'll be interesting to see how new offensive line coach Juan Castillo works with the personnel that he has here in Chicago. I personally think their offensive line is a solid one. They have good core players like left tackle Charles Leno Jr., center Cody Whitehair, and guard James Daniels. Right tackle Bobby Massey is another valuable asset who has dealt with some nagging injuries, but healthy, he gives them another pillar to build upon. So they have a rock-solid group to start with. Now, at right guard is where you will see a battle for the job. Rashad Coward has made the successful transition from college defensive lineman to NFL offensive lineman, and he'll get the first crack at the spot. His growth under Castillo will be something to watch. He'll have to hold off free agent signing Jermaine Ifedi, who comes over from the Seattle Seahawks, where he was a long-time starter. His experience could give him the edge to start, thus giving Coward more time to fine-tune his game. Depth will be interesting here with the signing of Jason Spriggs, who missed all of last season while in Green Bay. He gives them depth at tackle, and 7th-round pick Lachavious Simmons out of Tennessee State is an athletic player who could provide depth at both guard or tackle. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball and starting with their defensive line, which in my opinion is probably the Bears' deepest unit on defense. Getting Akeem Hicks back healthy is a huge boost to a unit that helped contribute to a run defense that only gave up 102 yards a game, which ranked 9th in the NFL. When you look at Akeem Hicks, he is one of the best players at his position in the league. Both Eddie Goldman and Bilal Nichols have continued to make strides in their game each season, and Nichols should push for Pro Bowl honors this upcoming year. I am expecting big things from reserve Roy Robertson Harris. The 4th-year veteran out of UTEP has very good athleticism and can collapse the pocket from the outside. He figures to play a prominent role within the rotation. Both John Jenkins and Brent Urban provide good rotational depth as well. Chicago loves the upside of Abdullah Anderson, who developed nicely within their program and is a core special teamer as well. Khalil Mack is one of the best rushers and defenders in the entire NFL, and despite not having double-digit sacks and TFLs for the first time in his career, he still managed to make his 5th consecutive Pro Bowl appearance. Mack saw an enormous amount of attention last year, and that's why the addition of Robert Quinn on the opposite side of him should do wonders. It should also help the Bears get to the quarterback a lot more. Last season, they only sacked the quarterback 32 times, down from the 50 that they got in 2018. To help with that number, the Bears also drafted Trevis Gibson out of Tulsa in the 5th round. He's a strong point of attack player that can win with power and hustle in rushing the quarterback. And they signed Barkevious Mingo to provide good depth on both sides of the edges as well as play special teams. Now on the interior, the depth is thin there, so they can't afford any injuries to starting inside backers Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan. Both guys are tremendous run and chase backers that make a lot of plays and can also cover. Trevathan is coming off of an injury-plagued season which limited him to only 9 games. Smith finished with 101 total tackles, which led the team, and that's back-to-back seasons for him in that regard. This year, he hopes to make his first Pro Bowl. At cornerback, having Kyle Fuller is huge for this secondary. He's one of the better man corners in football and brings terrific instincts to the table. Buster Skrine is solid as their slot corner, but after those two, it's going to be one hell of a battle as the Bears brought in some new faces this offseason. Audie Burns comes over from the Pittsburgh Steelers. The former first-round pick is looking to resurrect his career in Chicago as he's expected to be the starter opposite of Fuller. I use the word expected as he will have to fend off rookie second-round pick Jalen Johnson out of Utah, whose game reminds me a lot of Kyle Fuller, quite honestly. He's good at playing off coverage and drives on the ball really well. They also drafted Kendall Vildor out of Georgia Southern, who figures to give Skrine a run for his money in that slot. Vildor is coming off of a solid career with Georgia Southern and a strong week at the Senior Bowl. In one of their first moves of the offseason, they signed CFL star Trey Roberson, and what he brings to the table is the ability to play inside or outside man or off coverage, but has great ball skills as well. And Chicago still has young talent on the roster like Kevin Tolliver, who played well last year in my opinion, Michael Joseph, and Steven Denmark. They have worked with those guys within their program, and they still factor into their plans. Denmark could even transition to safety, which could also bolster the depth there, as that was also a focal point of the Bears this offseason, bringing in Kentrell Bryce and Jordan Lucas, both of which have logged a lot of snaps in their careers. The team also signed to Sean Gibson, and look for him to start next to Eddie Jackson as he brings to the table some great ball skills. And speaking of Eddie Jackson, entering his 3rd season, the Bears showed their appreciation by getting his contract extended. Jackson has great instincts, range, and ball skills and pairs up perfectly with Gibson. Although Devin Bush will make a strong push for that starting role, he'll have his work cut out for him. Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by Ninth and Lux. Visit the website ninethandlux.com and check out the clothing gallery. Do You Music with feature artist IW in his latest release, Mr. Hunter. That's doyoumusic.com. You can also find it available on iTunes as well as Spotify. Nesby Phipps, art, life, entertainment. NesbyPhipps.com. Grind It Out Fitness. Visit the website grinditoutfitness.com and download the app. The Academy of Broadcast Media in Hackensack, New Jersey. Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by Financial Coaching LLC, investment, retirement, security. Stewardship Credit, financial growth is in your hands. Stewardshipcredit.com. Adrienne Marie Photo, photographer, writer, management. AdrienneMariePhotography.com. Lock Multimedia. Be sure to order your copy of the Go-Go Offense by Coach Brennan Marion on footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. Coach Marion goes through the ins and outs of his explosive offense, one that's tearing up the college football field and putting a lot of points on the scoreboard. Again, you can order your copy at footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. Look for Dieter Iceland to be a camp surprise on offense. The former Yale Bulldog offensive lineman was one of the better prospects coming out of the FCS this season and has a chance to impress considering the attention that will be paid to building the depth up front. Defensively, people in Chicago will get very familiar with how good of a player Trey Roberson is. He went from stellar college quarterback to stellar defensive back, having stood out in Vikings camp before heading off to the CFL, where he became an all-star. the Bears got themselves an underrated gem in the former Calgary Stampeder. The offensive rookie impact player will have to be Cole Kmet out of Notre Dame. By taking him in the second round, the Bears made it clear that he is going to have a significant role within their offensive attack this season. With that being the case, he'll have no choice but to perform. Defensively, Jalen Johnson is primed to stand out as a rookie. You can't go wrong with a defensive back coming out of the Utah Utes program, and Johnson figures to be the next in line to impress. The biggest X factor on offense is quarterback Mitch Trubisky. If he can play consistent ball and just be a piece of the offense, this team can accomplish some good things in 2020. And Akeem Hicks being healthy and ready to go helps this defense out in a multitude of ways. Being able to control the point of attack just got a lot easier with him back in the lineup. I believe Javon Wims is ready to break out this season. There's an opening for the third receiver in his passing game, and I feel like Wims' ability and consistency that he shows catching the football, he figures to seize that role. Bilal Nichols will look to put his name right up there with both Hicks and Eddie Goldman. I think because of his quickness off the ball, he has a chance to be really disruptive this upcoming season. One of the reasons for optimism for Chicago is that they don't lack talent on both sides of the ball. They have some explosive offensive players, some dominant players on defense. When you combine that with excellent special teams, i.e. returner Cordero Patterson, there's a lot to like about the Chicago Bears. And their defense can still be dominant. We just talked about their defense finishing 9th last year, and they're getting back some pieces healthy, and they added a guy in Robert Quinn, plus they built up that safety core around Eddie Jackson. So to me, this team can be dominant on that side of the ball, just like we saw in 2018. And also, there seems to be a sense of urgency around the Bears this offseason. And I'm talking about from the coaching staff and from the general manager, and also, quite honestly, from the quarterback position. That sense of urgency will help them focus razor sharp on what has to be done to get done this season in order for all three of those guys to keep their jobs. A cause for concern would be if their quarterback situation doesn't improve, and that's talking about both Mitch Trubisky as well as Nick Foles. If they can't get any stability at that position, it could be a problem, which would also be a problem for their run game like we saw last year. If their run game is running in place like we saw in 2019, the Bears team as a whole could be headed for what we saw last year, more of the same, 7-9, 8-8 type season. They have to make sure that quarterback play comes to play, which then helps everyone else out on offense. The road to the Super Bowl for the Bears goes as follows. If the defense returns to form and starts to turn the ball over, giving their offense more opportunities, or even playing on a short field, they can definitely go far, even get to the playoffs strictly off their defense and special teams. And if the run game shows up and shows out, if they're able to get back to running the football at a 4.5 yard per carry rate, or even 5 yard per carry rate, defense, run game, special teams can take you where you need to be. But if Trubisky's deep ball improves and they're able to stretch the field vertically instead of short and horizontally, then this team can definitely go all the way to Tampa Bay. I have the Bears finishing third in the NFC North. To me, very good defense, good special teams unit, good pieces on offense, but I worry about the quarterback position and finding continuity. I think we'll end up seeing Nick Foles at some point in this season, but that offense will suffer because they can't figure out the quarterback position. But if they do, this team can challenge for the top spot in the division because of their defense and the pieces that they have around Trubisky and Foles. So that's it for this edition of Football Game Plan's NFL All 32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts. And don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/footballgameplan. Also subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating. That's where you can find our NFL All 32 podcast. And keep it locked here on the Football Game Plan YouTube channel, where we will have a ton more of Bears-related video content in our All 22 show, our fantasy football starting lineup, as well as our best bets.
It's D-U-E, you tell I see you by this point, you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.